Last week, we continued reading the book of Timothy, and in 1 Timothy chapter 4, that actually just continues the discussion about who a good minister of God, a deacon, deaconess, bishop, the characters that are expected from someone that calls themselves a minister of God. And then in chapter 5, he also addresses how we should treat elders, widows, both young and old, and he encourages us not to be quick to judge, that we should always listen, almost like say, listen to both sides of the story before you make a conclusion. And then when we get to 1 Timothy chapter 6, he actually addresses us that we should be encouraged that whatever situation we find ourselves, we should understand that no condition is permanent, so to say. That we should be encouraged that whatever we're going through, it's just for a moment in time. And he also speaks to those that are like rich and think, oh, I became this by myself, that they should be careful to know that nobody became rich by themselves. It is just by the grace and mercy of God. And then when we get to 2 Timothy, in 2 Timothy, Paul actually just continues admonishing, encouraging the believers. And in chapter 1, verse 5, he referenced something there and was referencing Timothy's faith. And then he said that he saw the same faith in his mother and grandmother. And what do I want to point out there? That simply says that Timothy's grandmother made that legacy for the mother, that is, taught her about faith. Then the mother taught Timothy about faith as well. So what am I saying? That we need to teach our children from birth, from when they're young, so that when they're old, according to the Bible, they will not depart from the word that we have taught them. And then when we get to verse 7 of that same chapter 1 of 2 Timothy, it encourages us not to be fearful, that yes, there are things around us that is going to make us fearful, but God has not given us a spirit of fear. He has given us a spirit of sound mind and boldness, and we should be bold. In chapter 2, he continues to encourage Timothy to stand as a soldier of Christ. In chapter 3, he addresses that there will be perilous times, but that we should not be shaken and that we should not lose our faith when those perilous times come, but hold on to God. And then in chapter 4, it is actually a love letter to Timothy. Like I said, Paul writes a lot of love letters. And one of it is one in chapter 4 of 2 Timothy, which was a love letter to Timothy from Paul. And then when we get to 1 Peter, we read 1 Peter chapters 1 through 5. And what that is actually a love letter from Peter to the believers. You know, we've been talking about Paul writing love letters, but the entire chapters of 1 Peter, that is chapters 1 through 5, is actually like a love letter from Peter to the believers. And he encourages us, he addresses quite a number of things. One of the things he addresses is that he encourages us to be strong. He encourages us to love one another, husbands to love their wives, wives to respect their husband and love one another. He talks about relationship between elders and the church, our relationship in the world that we live in. He also addresses our relationship with one another. That's what that chapters 1 through 5 of 1 Peter is all about. And like I said, it's a love letter from Peter to the believers. And then we read 2 Peter chapter 1. And that actually talks about faith in Christ as well. And it says that it is by the grace of God that we are who we are. So what it's trying to tell us is that we should not think that we achieved anything or we got to where we are by our own strength, but it is by the grace of God. And I hope that you have a wonderful week. It's been a great journey. You and I on this journey have been enjoying it. I've been blessed by it. And we have just 2 weeks to go. And I really appreciate your coming to this space all the time. Have a blessed week.